Panchayat and Municipality Acts 1994. But above that, Kerala went for this 4-year frame for local economic development. The fund, basically it is pro-poor. We got a lot of funding arrangements from central as well as state schemes. And local governments should minimum invest 30% of their own fund, means 30% of their budget for productive sector, including agriculture, veterinary, dairying, milk, local economic micro enterprises, etc. And we have another program called Women Component Plan, WCP. It is to empower women on a strategic gender needs angle. So it's largely on livelihood and other support is given under that. We have a lot of functionaries to look after these arrangements too. Agriculture, subsidies are there, skill training is there, livelihood promotion is there, on a self-reliance angle, micro enterprises with a focus on women. We have a lot of local markets being opened by the local governments, promoting children's club in the schools, whether it is veterinary club or the agriculture club or the poultry club, etc. And largely it is having a multi-pronged approach to LED. And there are a lot of functionaries also, whether it is agriculture officer, industrial extension officer, veterinary surgeon, dairy, fishery officer, Kudumbashree people, everybody could be considered as the functionaries. In some of the vibrant schools, even child leaders are also acting as the local economic producers. And we have the fraternity arrangements, a lot of policy support. We have specific working group on local economic development for the local governments. We have a lot of farmers groups, cooperative arrangements, Grama Sabha and Ward Sabha, People's Council, village councils, and have subsystems, subgroups to discuss local economy, everything. And here we have 3 tiers in local government system: Grama Panchayat, Block Panchayat, and District Panchayat at rural level. Out of these 3 tiers, and Block Panchayat is having more and more importance in facilitating the social, enterprise and other activities. So here, I may say this 4 frame is what is telling us is it's a social capital, it's a relationship counts. So I may say it's a socializing the economy. When we say agriculture, it is a sociology of agriculture rather than economy of agriculture, it counts. And here I am not reading everything. It's a two, three models I am just placing. I am not giving you the example, the name of the Grama Panchayat, name of the region on the ethical grounds, because our arrangement and understanding is not to publish these things unless it is achieved 100%. It is moving towards 100% achievement, more specifically during COVID time. We have localized economic development models from local governments. So see, we have a lot of examples, package of programs, use of local resources is coming in, employment generation, income generation for additional people, more number of people, self-sufficiency in egg production. It means, localized economy doesn't mean that we should get everything for the local people, for the locality. So whatever is possible. So some people do self-sufficiency in vegetables, some people self-sufficiency in egg culture, some people go for self-sufficiency in banana, some go for self-sufficiency in meat, milk, all those matters. So these are, local level, the activities are visible, people come together. All these activities happen not because of any other matters, it's largely because of their social capital formation, the relationship, the neighbors come together, then they do a lot. And again, two more, models here. Generally, these local economic models is additional production, additional income generation, additional employment generation, effective utilization of local resources, increasing the local productions, and finally leading to self-sufficient villages. So that's what largely the local economic development matters also. These are some of the local products. I have been to some of these units also before COVID, and I asked them to, can you give one back to me? They said, no, sir, it is for import. It's for global markets. That's also dangerous. That's also dangerous. But here the advantage is the local is opening up for the global. That's what Gandhiji also said. The Antyodaya approach is telling us that we need to make our things more and more We need to make our, am I back? Clear?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It is telling us, I'm just stopping it. It's telling us that start, strengthening the locality. Let the local become more vocal. Let the locality produce whatever it is needed on a priority scale. Then get from other markets whatever is not available. Let the global markets also start depending upon the local markets also. That's what we try to say always, the mutual respect, mutual understanding, the local economy, which is depending on the social relationship. So thanks a lot. Go back to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. It was a very informative session. Next, we have Dr. K.S. Hari, Assistant Professor, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Pune. Christ College and Department of Economics is proud enough to have our own alumni as our resource person for the day. And it's really a very good inspiration for all our students, sir. Hari sir will be handling the area on the role of state in social sector development. With due respect, welcome you, sir, for the session.
Yeah, respected principal, manager, and head of the department, and dear friend Dr. Franco for inviting me for this day. And it is a great privilege for me to be back to my college because I was there as a student during the period early 90s, 91 to 96 to be precise. I was doing my pre-degree and undergraduate studies there. Then I moved on to this Dr. John Mathai Center, Calicut University, and then to Center for Development Studies, Trivandrum, for my PhD. So today I'll be discussing on, is it visible? The slides are visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll briefly discuss upon this whole question of the because the title itself is given, we had situated this seminar as the overall development of the country or the world. Then I thought of presenting my case for the role of state, because I do always believe that state is having a major role to play, especially when it comes to the human development indicators, because we define overall development as growth plus change in the social sector. Mainly it's a structural change which we are talking about in terms of education, healthcare, or whatever other way. Mainly the life of the individuals, the improvement that can happen directly in the life of the individual. That is what we understand by the overall development of any region or any country, or global level also. So the motivation for this study mainly because I found that there is an increasing discussion in the literature, international literature, on the need for increased investment by the state or the government in social sector. Basically because we are always late in terms of catching up. India as a country, because I was examining the human development reports, we always know that our rank is above 100. That means almost say in the medium human development category, we have been for a period of time, say for almost 2 decades, we have been standing there without much improvement in that. But if you compare ourselves with our neighbor countries or in the other Asian countries, we find that we were all on a same level when we all got independence after the Second World War. Almost a similar period if we compare with India, China, Korea, Japan, Singapore, or any other East Asian countries. We were all having a similar level of development in the early 50s. Then over a period of time, they moved ahead faster pace, and by 70s, they almost solved the first generation problems of education, healthcare, all these things, or what Amartya Sen called as the development problems. They could successfully solve those problems by the 80s, so that when this whole question of globalization or the opening up came up, they could catch the market easily. That is why China could move ahead of India almost three decades back. That is mainly possible because they have made the required changes in their development indicators even But when we talk about India's case, we know that we are moving very slowly but steadily. But one thing is that the regional differences within the country, that is another parameter which we have to examine always. So whatever studies that has happened, one major limitation in India was the availability of database. So one important this thing which I found recently is this annual data on human development and related indices for the Indian states from the Global Data Lab of Radboud University of Netherlands. So this is a welcome database that is available now for an annual data at the state level for over almost 29 years. We have from the 90s till 2019, we have the database on different Indian states on various human development indicators. And of course, we have a database for social sector expenditure available from the 1970s onwards. So I thought I will relate these two parameters to find out how what role the state has been performing in India in terms of contributing towards the social development. So this is how I will present my paper here. Now I will touch upon critical background because the students are listening. Majority of the crowd today is of the undergraduate and postgraduate students of the college. So I will briefly touch upon the theoretical background so that they refresh their memories of readings. And in the third sections, I will mainly look at the macro indicators on India's performance in human development, as well as the trends in social sector expenditure. Then I will go to my empirical question of relating the expenditure with that of the human development outcome using a time series as well as a panel data framework, because this database gives me an advantage in terms of providing this panel data for a longer period of time. So I'm making use of that advantage in my analysis to arrive at some kind of a conclusion and policy implications in the Indian context. So when we look at the theoretical paradigm, we know that in the 50s onwards, this high development theory came into existence. And because the traditional growth theory as such, if you look at the Harrow-Daumer or the Louis Ney, these solo models and other models of growth, we all know that this neoclassical paradigm was mainly concerned with capital and productivity rather than coming any this specific importance to that of the human development or human capital as a variable. But later developments in the development theory and growth theory also, if you know the Lucas and Romer models, they all gave importance to the emergence of the new growth theory, where we term it as the new growth theory or the endogenous growth models. They endogenize the role of human capital, and human capital also is added into these TFP estimations and all total factor productivity, where they started endogenizing the contribution of this, and this has contributed or in explaining to a great extent the East Asian miracles, and convergence studies also came out of this type of this thing, and they could explain to a great extent why there is no convergence that happens, because one of the major strong prediction of the solo model was the convergence that was expected across the countries or across the regions over a period of time. But that was not happening, mainly because of the differentials in the human capital attainment, and there is an increasing or a constant return to scale also happening across the country. And if you look at the development theory, there is a parallel development that happened mainly as a contribution of Mahbubul Haq and Amartya Sen, because they went beyond that of this endogenized models or treating human capital as a variable. They propounded the hypothesis that this is the human capital is important more than that human capability, this education or that whatever variable we are taking it as a human development indicators itself have an intrinsic value, and it can contribute to their own well-being. Its own value is there, because beyond increasing the productivity or the production, it has its own advantages, because being able to write itself, he termed it as a capability attainment, and that capability itself affects his level of functionings and the way we live. That is also the way we live as a literate person compared to an illiterate person. If you make a comparison, you know that that has itself been giving more advantages to the literate person. And likely the mother's education, child's health, all these empirical studies proves that there is an added role for human development in itself, rather than being just a variable contributing to economic growth. This itself is the end of development rather than a means of development. This itself proves to be an end of development. And many countries, if you look at because these type of hypothesis mainly proposes a high growth for the increasing role for the state in development, mainly state mediated kind of development, or a state mediated kind of a social security that is being advocated by this group of economists or development scientists. But this has again got a historical root. If you look at because you know that the importance of Christian missionaries or the Christ College itself in the locality, we know what contribution the Christ College itself has contributed to the local development. Like that, if you go back 200 years back, we all know the contribution of these Christian missionaries in the European countries also. Initially, it started as the evangelical movement, if you know the history very well. The church started rather than the state starting the role in development. These things, it was the church which started. Later, the development state has taken it over. And even today, if you like the kind of Scandinavian countries or other European countries, a major chunk of expenditure in terms of this education or healthcare, all these things are taken care by the state or the government. But in the Indian case, you all know that it is out-of-pocket expenditure. If you take the out-of-pocket expenditure, 50 to 60% of our expenditure for basically on healthcare, this is mainly coming out of the out-of-pocket expenditure. And this leads to a serious issue in the country, because if there is going to be a pandemic now, if you look at the COVID pandemic, unless the state is taking care of, if you have to be treated in a private medical facility, then even if you are a middle income family, you will be ending up in below the poverty line after being treated for COVID. That is the situation now. So that itself shows the importance of the role for state in terms of providing the basic, at least the basic education and basic healthcare and other parameters of overall development. One thing is that otherwise it will lead to a higher or increasing degree of inequality in the country as well. Because those who can afford a better education or better healthcare will be moving towards better facility, and those who cannot afford to will be left out of the overall process of the development of the country. So it is in this context that I argue that there is an increasing role for the state in these human development activities. So if I look at the long-term trend in the human development, as I told in the beginning itself, there is a steady improvement that is happening. But on a relative scale, our ranking still remains very poor, or we still remain into the medium human development category. So this is how we changed. If you look at the picture from 90s to 2018, this is how India moved to a low human development to a medium and high human development. A high human development is limited to a very few states in India, basically the southern state and some northern states and northeastern states, including Goa is also representing a high human development now compared to the international norms. So this is how the picture has changed over a period of almost 3 decades. So there is a long-term convergence, but a steady, very low degree of convergence that is happening across the states in India. So this is how India compare in terms of human development expenditure or expenditure on education and healthcare as a percentage of GDP. If you take, then you will find that even the countries that are highly developed, even they also spend a higher proportion of their GDP. You take the case of Japan, Germany, or any other developed countries, Sweden, you know that US also, these countries, it is very clear that India is underspent, or India is not spending because of the fiscal constraint. Because mainly a government argument is that whenever, because we have passed a fiscal responsibility and budget management act in 2005, and whenever there is a fiscal constraint in the country, it's always the social sector expenditure that is always being compromised in India. So that you can clearly see here. We are almost having a stagnant expenditure in terms of social sector. The change that happened only during the period from say 2006 to 15, you can see an increase in the human development related expenditure. Now again we are going back to the earlier levels of human development expenditure. This is true for even if you take the per capita expenditure also. Mainly the healthcare expenditure is very limited, very small in India. Even though we have many schemes like National Rural Health Mission and other schemes, I find that the proportion of expenditure that goes to the healthcare requirement of India is very limited even today. So there is an increasing degree of inter-state differential also. If you take the case of, a surprising result is that some of the backward states also spend a higher proportion of their expenditure on human development. So this again warrants a study from our angle, whether it is the expenditure alone which that matters, or the efficiency of expenditure that also matters. Because it is not only the expenditure alone which lead to the outcome variable, because it is the way in which that is going to be translated into outcome that also matters. So I won't spend much time. If any question is there, I will come back to this expenditure detail. So I have mainly used these two data sets: annual data on HTA and Indian related states from the global data, and social sector expenditure from the EPW Research Foundation. For the 24 states for the detailed analysis, and period of study is 1990 to 2017-18. And we have tested for the long run relationship between the HDI and social sector expenditure using the standard Angel Granger co-integration method, and short-run dynamics by error correction mechanism, and Granger analysis, and investigation of whether there are any co-integrating relationship among the variables in panel data. We have done the Pedron and Co test based on the Angel Granger test, and two-step residual based co-integration test, and Fisher test is also done as a combined Johansson test to find whether there is any long-term co-integrating relationship among the social sector expenditure and human development variable in India. And this is the unit root result. And this is how I can summarize that. The series of all states are not stationary at the levels, but are stationary at their first differences, except Himachal Pradesh and Kerala, which are different stationary. And out of the 24 states, only 5 states, Bihar, Manipur, Nagaland, Punjab, and Tamil Nadu, produce the results that the two series are co-integrated. Error correction results shows that no state in the 5 states with co-integrating results, errors are corrected and the shock or deviation from the equilibrium relation is permanent. Gross absence of long-run association between HDA and social sector spending across the state does not mean that there should not be any short-run interplay or causal relationship between the two. So in order to examine that, we have done this Granger causality test again, And the changes in the social sector spending influence changes in the HDI of 6 states, mainly Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Manipur, and Tamil Nadu. And reverse causality was found only in Punjab and Uttar Pradesh, and bilateral causality was found for Haryana, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Nagaland. There are 12 states where neither social sector expenditure making a cost to human development nor the reverse happened. Since no clear and conclusive results from the individual state-specific exercise, we do the same exercise for the panel of state, as the panel data provides more power to the model. So initially I was doing for the individual states, and then I tried to run a panel data model. And this is the result, which any question I will come back to that. Otherwise I will go to the result of that. The results of the test clearly shows that the series have a long run relationship in the panel data framework. Fisher and Johansson test shows that there is a co-integration relationship between the social sector expenditure and human development. And both results help us to reach the conclusion that the both series in panel are co-integrated and they have a relationship among. And the short-run relationship in Wald test revealed that all the past values of HDI and social sector expenditure has caused the current value of HDI. And our economic trick result prove that there is a long-run association between the social sector expenditure and changes in the HDI, but no way causal relationship are observed in the long run. However, there are bilateral causal relationship between the panel of the two variables in the short run. So coming to the conclusion part, I find that there is a long-term convergence in human development across the Indian states, and the level of social sector expenditure low compared to the other countries, which I have explained in the beginning. And there is a wide inter-regional differential in the expenditure, especially among the per capita expenditure. And our econometric results proves that there is a long-run association between social sector expenditure and changes in the HDI, but no way causal relationships are observed in the long run. However, there are bilateral causal relationship between the panel of two variables in the short run. And this reiterates the importance of social sector expenditure on HDI. And the lagging states not only needs to improve their per capita expenditure, but needs to improve the efficiency of utilization of expenditure. How efficient the states are using or translating the expenditure into outcome variable is a positive future research question. And this is more important than expenditure itself. It is not only the quantum of expenditure that matters in the case of Indian state. It is how efficiently they are being able to utilize that expenditure and translating that expenditure into outcome variable that is found to be more important in the Indian context that rather than the absolute amount of expenditure itself. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Hari sir. It was really informative. Thank you. Dear participants, we have come to the end of our sessions. Now, it's the time for discussion. Participants can turn on your audio and ask your doubts and questions to our resource persons. Also, it will be nice if you introduce yourself before asking your questions.
Hello, my name is Gokhale Gopal. I am doing second PG Economics in Christ College. My question is to Hari sir. Can I ask?
Okay, Google, you can ask.
My question is that in last 20 years, India has improved its per capita income by many times when compared to Bangladesh. But Bangladesh has done better in social indicators, even though it is a very poor and backward country, especially when it comes to gender relations. What is the key reason behind India lagging behind in this area when compared to such a poor country like Bangladesh?
Hello, sir.
Is it towards me?
Google.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. As I told during the presentation itself, it is not only the expenditure that matters, it's the how efficiently you are able to translate that outcome indicators, or how input, because this is acting as an input variable, and you have an experience within the country itself. You don't need to go to the Bangladesh. Your own state, Kerala, could translate into a higher human development even during the period of low per capita income in the 70s and 80s. The classic case is that of Kerala itself, or take the case of Sri Lanka also. And recently it has been the experience with Bangladesh also. It is that it is not only that is what my general or the main argument is, also not that expenditure that alone matters. It is how efficiently you are able to translate that expenditure into outcome variable, how the government is able to translate in terms of providing the infrastructure or motivating the people, and how far they are able to even to control the leakages that can happen in the system in terms of the provision of the goods and services. It is not only the outcome budget that matters, it is how much leakage there is in terms of, because in India we know how much leakage that happens in terms of the provision of services when it comes to the various indicators. So that do all indicates how inefficient we are in terms of providing the services. That itself lead to and lack of focus, because we do have many multiple schemes, multiple governments interference, multiple agencies on the same issue. We will have different multiple agencies interfering without not much coordination happening there, or not much focus happening there. So that itself leads to a situation where India is lagging behind in terms of outcome indicators. Thank you, Gokhale, for this question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, I have
Is there
one
any-
question.
Okay.
My name is Teresa Joshi. I'm a former student of Christ College, and now I'm doing a Master's in Economic Policy in University of Siegen, Germany. My question is to Dr. Peter M. Raj. Hope sir is hearing this question. Like he was, okay. So you were telling the importance of this local government bodies, and like it should be more improved. So I believe that the people, those who are responsible for this, is government bodies, or the people those who are elected in the local level, that is for the Gram Panchayat, etc. And now, like in Kerala, since you are from Thrissur, I think you are aware that some non-profit organizations, like in Ernakulam district, you know that 2020, it's in Kerakamalam, like it's a non-profit organization taking responsibility for this local government bodies, and like they are doing or they introduced this because of the failure of political system. And they are doing all kind of things, like they are providing markets for local people, and they are building the roads and a multi-specialty hospital that they are going to build. So do you think sometimes because of the failure of this political system, this non-profit organizations are coming forward for the local development is a threat for democracy, or it is good for the local development?
Okay, thank you. I think it's a very important and tricky question too. And you expect my sincere answer, no? Okay. It's again a time for election, so I will maintain a balance in answering to it. It's a lot of discussion. Even I have been getting a lot of calls from several of my friends working abroad and other parts of India too on this particular aspect. I had been 2 times to this 2020 also. So here, my first response is, when I'm not using the word 2020, when an agency is entering into local politics, I feel it's because they have more faith in local governments. There are a lot of other forums, There are a lot of other forums. So when a so-called social economic entrepreneur, I may call like that, the social economic entrepreneur is trying to invest in local politics, local political development or local development, it means there is a good sign that more and more people are interested in local government. That's one thing. But it's up to the people. You ask that it's a government or the elected representatives or the so-called, the corporate, who is responsible in local governance. No, the responsibility rests with the, the people of the locality, the citizens. I may call it as a OTEs, the OTEs. We call it as the Grama Sabha members too. It's OTEs of the locality. They should be the responsible for whatever is happening there. It is up to them to decide. It is up to them to decide. So it's not the issue of measuring the democracy. It's not the issue of measuring the democracy. If the people feel that such sort of people should come into local politics, local planning affairs, then they should invest more into the locality. So it's up to the people. In a democracy, it's a people's verdict is most. This particular government also has come into power. It's beyond. It is not 2020. It's a local government, the Gram Panchayat called Kedakkambalam. So the trust is mattering a lot. It's up to the people. They should feel that democracy should not be marketed also. It's the verdict should be used properly to benefit the locality, keeping into account of all the principles of subsidiarity, which the local governance, based on the principles of social justice plus all those of things. So that's all my answer for time being. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you, Peter, sir. Participants, is there any more questions?
I think I see one. Can I?
Yes, sir.
I see one Manikya Velu Vardaraj, banana production. He has asked some questions in the chat box. I take just half a minute on that. So why the banana production is, the farmers are into not getting adequate profit, etc. Here I am not giving you all the economic solution. My simple solution for here is to apply more the principles of sociology of banana cultivation also. I see a lot of banana cultivators, the youngsters are coming into, youngsters are taking it as enterprise. The political party leaders, the political youth groupings, the faith-based organizations, self-help groups, both men and women are coming into all sort of cultivation, especially during the COVID. So for them, it's a matter of relationship also, not merely the profit making. So the relationship, if it is built strongly into a social capital dimension, definitely they can take things to the higher level. So it matters, diversification, policy support, value added products, hand-holding support, everything is mattering a lot. But I may say, we need to apply for such sort of local economic things, the sociology of banana production also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It seems that there is another question in the chat box. It is to Bhaskaran, sir, asking why you don't include Jammu and Kashmir for female participation in India. One, Mr. Sagar Kumar has posted the question.
The answer is very simple. We just don't have data on Jammu and Kashmir, so we would have liked to include them, but there's no data.
Thank you. So participants, if there are no more questions, we can proceed to the valedictory session. Okay, so thank you all our respected resource persons for all your answers, and thanking all participants for your questions.
Thank you, participants and resource persons. Now let us move on to the valedictory session. I would like to invite Lieutenant Dr. Franco T. Francis, Assistant Professor and Joint Secretary of the webinar, Christ College, Iranyalakuda, for the vote of thanks. Sir, please.
Good afternoon to all the respected dignitaries. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude on behalf of Department of Economics of Christ College to the IQAC of Christ College and Dr. Robinson Pulvanisheri. Now I would like to thanks to our
Excuse me, Franco sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon to all the respected dignitaries. First of all, I express my sincere gratitude to the internal quality assurance cell of Christ College, Irinjalakuda, especially the coordinator, Dr. Robinson Ponvinisheri. Now, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to all the resource persons, Professor Dr. Thushyanthan Bhaskaran sir, Siegen University, Professor Peter Raj, and Professor K.S. Hari.
Franco sir, excuse me, sir. Okay. Okay, please continue.
Okay. Professor Suchin Bhaskaran sir is also our student's professor, and Peter Raj sir is our family friend and my friend also. And he is reputed, working as in a reputed institute of Kerala, Institute for Local Administration, KILA. We express our sincere gratitude to all the resources persons on this webinar. Now I would like to, our principal, beloved principal, Father Dr. Jolie Andrews, our HOD, Reverend Sister Rosilio, and all the faculty members of our department for their wholehearted activities for this webinar, very grand success. And I also express our sincere gratitude to the technical wing, especially Hari, Rajesh. Now, I thank to all the participants in this webinar for the webinar. It's a very grand success. Thank you. Once again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So by this, we have come to the conclusion of the webinar. Once again, we, the Department of Economics, would like to extend our sincere gratitude to the resource persons, Dr. Thushyanthan Bhaskaran, Dr. Peter M. Raj, and Dr. K.S. Hari. We would also like to extend our sincere gratitude to our principal, Reverend Father Jolie Andrews, and our manager, Reverend Father Jacob Irinjalakuda, and all faculty members of Christ College, and all your participants for your active participation. Thank you.
Hello, Thushyanthan sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
It was a
very much.
pleasure.
Hari sir, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Thank you, Franco, for this time.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Franco and team. Sir, thank you.
അവരൊക്കെ പറയണ്ടല്ലേ എനിക്കൊന്നും കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല.
Dear participants, the feedback form is shared in the chat box. All of you, please fill the feedback form and submit it. Also, please make sure that the email ID that is provided in the feedback form is correct. If there is any mistake in the email ID provided in the feedback form, then you will not get the certificate. So kindly check if all the entries are correct before submitting. Thank you.
Dear participants, you may exit from the Google Meet. Thank you for your participation.